Whew, well, Manchester City, they are splashing that cash. Here's a look at some of the reported summer transfers. Rayan Cherki, the French international, Tijjani Reijnders, one of the few bright spots really for AC Milan this last season, and Rayan Cherki. Okay, so Manchester City, are they back? Like, what's going on here? They made a lot of moves in the winter. They're following that up with some big summer moves as well, trying to get back on top in the Premier League. But Nigel, you've been surprised that Pep Guardiola's basically got, it looks like a blank check here to fill this squad?
I'm not surprised. For me, I would say that we all knew that they were in a rebuilding process and he needed to refresh his squad and remotivate it. And sometimes as a manager, what you need to do is bring in new players, fresh blood, fresh personalities will come. They'll change the dynamic in training. They'll change the attitude of players. And they'll change the application of players because some players might be full up and comfortable. So when you bring in new talent and competition for places, it changes the whole environment, and that's what Manchester City have done. But I wouldn't say they're back.
Yeah, because James Benge wasn't all that confident that this Man City team was automatically going to go back in, the favorites category for winning the Premier League. Where do they fall for you, Nico, with some of these moves? How quickly will it come together?
I think they're in the favorites category. I don't know if they're the front runner, but to me, you build a squad and then we find out if you're a team. You don't win the Premier League based on your transfer window. I want to see how it all comes together, and they took care of business quickly, quite literally, right? They used this mini transfer window to their advantage, and they have a pretty competitive team. I think they're one of the favorites to win Club World Cup, right? Based off of the transfers they've pulled off, because it's a pretty strong squad.
Yeah, off the bat, I think the most important person in this whole dynamic, and I think a lot of the pressure going in, they have a new sporting director, Hugo Viana. So for him to get these three transfers we're going to see is a massive get, and they are taking Club World Cup very seriously. I think you make this move to compete for that and give it the full-on preseason that these new signings deserve.
But then just quickly, I would say what people would say as well is the Club World Cup might play a bit of a disadvantage in the long term of going into a Premier League season when you look at the likes of Liverpool and Arsenal getting that rest, and Liverpool's reinforcements that they're making makes them, for me, strong favourites to repeat winning the Premier League title again if they get those players.
Okay, but looking at these three additions, I mean, some players with some massive upside. Nige, when you look at who City are bringing in, which player do you think is set to have the biggest impact for the club, especially within the way that Pep Guardiola likes to play?
There's no guarantee. I think when you come into the Premier League, you look at the additions that they're bringing in, it's a different kettle of fish when you go and play in the Premier League. You guys,
my favorite analogy.
My tongue twist, right?
I got allergies, man.
I mean, look, they bought a young centre-back, Kushinov, from the French league halfway through the season last year. Came in as a centre-back. We talk about the rebuild. The young lad struggled. Now, more than likely, he's probably not even going to start at centre-back. But when I look at the signings so far, I would say for me, the one that stands out, I feel has the right attributes to be impactful instantly in the Premier League is Reijnders. Reijnders, for me, is a goal-scoring midfielder. Doesn't need to get too involved in the play. And luckily so, now they've got Rodri coming back in now. That's going to be his job. He's going to be the one that dictates the pace for Manchester City, getting the ball off the back line, making these little passes. All Reijnders has to do is use the players around him and get into the box and add goals to his game. If I would say, and I like to say this, but Americans don't like it that much, he reminds me of a Frank Lampard, a goal-scoring midfielder. I'm not saying they're the same player, but the impact he will have on arriving on time, late into the box, which was what was the best qualities of Frank Lampard.
What qualities?
Was one of the best qualities.
There you go.
Of Frank Lampard.
Yeah, that team got bounced from the Champions League.
Arriving late into the box anyway. But for me, he's got that little bit that you could say, late arrivals, and will get goals in the Premier League.
He was a difference maker for Milan, right? Yeah. Arguably the best player of the season. The way that he interpreted the game, because if he wasn't on it, the rest of Milan wasn't on it. Yeah,
and
sure.
If he wasn't playing higher up, which was a key factor, because he can play deep. But when he plays higher up, he's way more impactful in a game of football.
Roaming in those half spaces at the edge of the box, finding those pockets. Oftentimes he was the glue for Milan, and I can't wait to see how that blossoms under Pep's instruction, right? Because Pep often gets these profile of players and takes them really to the next level. So when you've got like a supporting cast of Rodri in the midfield, you got Marmoush, all these guys that they're bringing, Haaland, Rayan Cherki, it feels like a recipe for success.
Yeah, the vibe about this player and this move reminds me a lot of, not Frank Lampard, Ilkay Gundogan, a younger Ilkay Gundogan coming out of Borussia Dortmund in terms of his big game presence. I mean, put together the goal scoring form that he's got you get good things in the final third. But the other guy that really catches my ear, and I thought you were going to go with this first, Rayan Cherki. I'm a big Rayan Cherki fan. I have been for the last couple of years. And I was disappointed not to see him in the Olympics. He's a bit of a maverick. He's a bit of an enigma, but you cannot deny his talent. We've all covered the Europa League this year. And I'd say behind Bruno Fernandes, he was probably the second best player in the Europa League in terms of pure talent, in terms of quality in the final third.
Disrespect for Patrick Berg, but okay, go ahead.
Damn it, I forgot about him. No, the big thing with him, though, is between the ears. He's got the talent, and we talked about this, is when it's not going his way, he's a very moody player. When it's not going his way, I want to see him grow up. He's 21 years old, but there's a maturation process that a manager like Pep Guardiola, you either evolve or you're out.
Well,
and so this is a big moment for him.
They paid a lot of money for him, so I think that he's going to be there for the long term. Maybe Pep might be changing.
Yeah, but
Pep
not necessarily, right? I mean, sure, that applies for a lot of clubs, but City will drop 100 million euros for Grealish using one season, and then, you're not good enough, thanks.
I think this is different now. I think Pep Guardiola loves to compete with himself to evolve as a manager. And I think even him now, this year, we're going to see a Pep Guardiola who lets the players go out there and play. I don't think he's going to be as instructive as he has been and has been super disciplined with his teams. I think that's been the problem. Everyone knows how to play against a Manchester City side now, a lot more so than beforehand. So now you need that element of surprise. He's the type of player that brings that. Malmouche on the other side, and you've got Reijnders in there. I think he's going to give them a bit more freedom now.
Where does this put City's midfield amongst other teams in the Premier League? Because I think I would argue that it is, you could, with these additions, like the best midfield in the league.
There's
if it all comes together, I think that's right up there with the likes of Liverpool.
If you're just talking midfield, I think you're sleeping on a few others. I think Liverpool's midfield and also even Newcastle's midfield is being slept on with the three that they have. But when you look at it, this could be a potential starting lineup for Manchester City. I've got Núñez at right back at the moment, even though City is still in the market for a right back, so to speak. We've got Guardiola and Diaz coming in the centre-back pair in there. And this is what we talk about for me. I think this is probably the key factor. This is the big man there. When you talk about football and you talk about managers and coaches, this is your manager on the pitch right now. This is a footballer at the highest level of IQ and intelligence who knows how to read the flow of the game. In the first 5-10 minutes, will dictate the pace, will be comfortable to get on the ball, will tell players where to go. This is Pep Guardiola on the pitch, and he will be the one that organises all these other players that we see. We've seen Malmouche show his quality already, the impact he can have. And like I said, Reijnders is way better up there, higher up the pitch. He can also play in a two, but you lose a lot more of his qualities when he's in these pockets here. Cherki is another one who can also get on the ball, even cause a lot of problems.
Even going back to the conversation, I don't think Rayan Cherki is an undisputed starter, right? He has to earn his spot, and maybe he's going to be a role player. Like, you have the likes of Nico Gonzalez, who's a more similar profile of Rodri, but I don't think he'll be playing. Bernardo Silva could slot into this position right here, right? To allow for Reijnders to get up. You have the 2-8s and the holding midfielder in Rodri, who obviously sets that tempo, who obviously is the one that orchestrates a lot of this. And then when you have a creative guy like Bernardo Silva that really needs to step it up this season, and an addition like Reijnders, it feels like a really deep midfield.
Bernardo Silva's always been linked with a move outside of Manchester City every window as well.
Mostly to Barcelona, and Barcelona is not getting him this lifetime or the next. The guy that I want to really highlight on, we haven't talked a lot about Rayan Cherki. Going forward, I think this guy's up there with some of the best in the Premier League, and you likened him to a level of a certain Chelsea fullback, no?
Yeah, for people who don't want comparisons, I would say if you look at him, I would say him and Cucurella are very similar. I would say Cucurella at Chelsea, for me, is probably the better defender in one-on-one situations when he has his head switched on. But when you talk about impacting the game, how they are attacking fullbacks, going to score goals, their numbers are very similar for goal scoring and goal contributions.
So when you get Ait in, there's a couple matches, the matches against Brentford, if you go back and watch that, outstanding. Against Liverpool, the first time they played, outstanding. You almost tilt the field like this, right? He goes up, higher up the field. He goes playing closer to Erling Haaland. Savinho can either come in centrally, Cherki. It just gives the back line, it gives Pep Guardiola another wrinkle up his sleeve that we didn't see enough last year. And if he bombs forward, Joško Gvardiol, he has the capacity. I thought he was one of City's most consistent players last year and arguably one of their players of the season for most of the season. So the freedom now for Aït to go and do what he does best, which is run at players and create in the final third, I think it's a good get for them.
Pep really likes Nunes, no?
Yeah.
Like they haven't gone after, but there's been a couple of moments.
He's made some mistakes defensively, but he likes him. I mean,
but he's also one of a few players, like in recent transfers, that haven't necessarily taken that massive step.
No,
so is there a
100%.
big concern when you look at some of these new additions? Like, who is the least likely to really live up to that potential under Pep Guardiola with how he likes to? You think so?
He's a big personality. He's a big character. How Pep Guardiola manages that personality and character is going to be the most interesting thing.
It's like, don't stifle him, right? That's the idea.
Yes,
like, how do you balance allowing him to show enough personality, but
you can't
keep him sharp at his best, and not fall into the whole methodology of Pep, like passing left and right.
Okay, so yeah, part of it is on the player, right, to submit to certain things that the manager wants them to do, but also it's on the manager in a lot of ways to notice what those individual talents and skill sets are, and then elevate those and find a way to make those come to life within the squad. Right?
Yeah, well, absolutely. But Pep's the king of this, right? Like, if there's anybody that gets this done, it's Pep. And he often changes the game in ways that makes everybody else kind of follow suit, with having the center backs play as fullbacks and blah, 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 whatever. After this season, he kind of needs to take another revolution, like a mini revolution, a mini change.
I wouldn't say it's a revolution. I think
okay, fine. Revolution is maybe too strong. He needs to change a certain dynamic within the team.
Do you think he will change, though? Do you think he will?
Well, that's a change in dynamic.
So he is. A big change. It's a massive refresh, a big change. Man City in the last couple of years haven't played with a true left fullback. You think of Nathan Ake's played fullback?
Yeah,
they won the treble. Gvardiol, Manuel Kanji. So this is a massive refresh. I wouldn't say revolution just yet. This is a major upgrade for Manchester City based off of where they were last year and where they're coming into this year. And Nico Gonzalez, a player that you and I went back and forth on, he is not the answer in terms of replacing Rodri right away, but it showed the urgency for Manchester City.
The desperation, I would say.
Yeah, to not let it become, okay, we're going to play catch up with Liverpool in 3 years' time. It's the immediacy, and that's the Pep Guardiola, when you have the blank check effect.
But why hasn't he been able to get the most out of some of these recent transfers? Because if you look at some of the money spent and then what's been produced,
I think he's
there's a lot to be desired.
He's very demanding, which is fine. But I think for me, he's too controlling in how these players play. When you talk to modern coaches and some of the managers you speak to, football is going back in a circle again where they're going to let the players have a lot more freedom to express themselves. That's what it is. We talk about Nico Williams, Lamine Yamal. All they do is get the ball and attack the fullback. That's what it is. In Pep's system, you have to do it Pep's way. It's too much. Arteta, very similar. Most of these teams have worked how to play against Manchester City and Arsenal by being very structured and organised because they're so robotic in how they play. Now, go play.